Scene start. In Thai, apartment bathroom, morning. Marina, 30, stands before a fogged-up bathroom mirror, mascara wand trembling in her hand. She's making a mess of applying it. The apartment is small, showing signs of wear and tear. A cheap space heater hums in the background. The shrill ring of a phone cuts through the quiet. Marina drops the mascara, nearly jumping out of her skin. She rushes to the kitchen, her bare feet sliding on the cold linoleum. Caller ID, unknown, Oregon. She hesitates, hand hovering over the receiver. Marina, weakly. Hello? A man's voice, OS. Marina Delacroix. Marina, yes, this is she. Detective Ray Hutchinson, Medford Police Department. I need to speak with you about Elena Vasquez. Marina's blood runs cold. She clutches the counter, her legs feeling weak. Marina, whispering. What happened? Detective Hutchinson, OS. We've uncovered some evidence related to her case. Would you be willing to come to Medford? I know it's a long shot after all this time, but... Marina barely hears the rest. Her hands shake so violently she almost drops the phone. Elena. 25 years of sleepless nights, gnawing guilt, unanswered questions. Elena, who laughed too loud, danced barefoot in the rain, loved with an intensity that frightened even Marina. Marina, voice gaining strength. I'll be there. I'll leave today. XT, Oregon Highway, day. 4 hours becomes an eternity. Marina drives through the Oregon mountains, the radio off, only the wind and her memories for company. She thinks of the last time she saw Elena alive, 3 days before the wedding. They were in Elena's apartment, trying on the wedding dress. Elena was radiant, her brown eyes shining with a happiness Marina had never seen before. In Thai, Elena's apartment, flashback. Elena, 20s, flashback. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Detective Hutchinson, I know, we checked. There was nothing in her medical records, no history of substance abuse. But David insisted. Until we found the veil, we had no evidence to contradict him. Marina stares again at the letter, trying to decipher the blurred words. She mentions our parents, but they died when we were children. Elena was only 16. Detective Hutchinson, are you sure about that? The question hits her like a punch. Marina, what do you mean? We checked the death records. Your parents, Carlos and Isabel Vasquez, didn't die in a car accident as you were told. They disappeared. They were declared dead only 7 years later, after you were both adults. The floor seemed to shift beneath Marina's feet. That's impossible. We went to the funeral, I remember. You went to a staged funeral, empty caskets. Someone wanted you to believe your parents were dead. Marina stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're saying my parents might be alive? I'm saying your sister discovered something, and it may have cost her life. That night, Marina couldn't sleep in the cheap motel she'd booked. She stayed up late, flipping through old family photos she'd brought in her bag, searching for clues she'd missed. There was a photo of Elena and David together, taken a few months before the disappearance. Elena smiled at the camera, but her eyes seemed distant, haunted. David had his arm around her, but his expression was possessive, almost predatory. Marina remembered how she'd never liked David. There was something about him that bothered her, a coldness beneath the superficial charm. He was older than Elena, 32 when they started dating, she only 23. He controlled everything in her life, where she worked, who she saw, even what clothes she wore. Elena said it was love, but Marina always suspected it was something more sinister. The next morning, Marina returned to the police station. Hutchinson was waiting with more information. We got in touch with some of David Morrison's co-workers, he said. Apparently, he was involved with a religious group. They called themselves the True Family. They practiced social isolation, financial control of members, arranged marriages, typical cult characteristics. Marina felt her blood run cold. Elena never mentioned anything about religion. Probably because she didn't know, at least not at first. But we found records showing David donated almost $50,000 to the group in the months before the wedding, money that didn't seem to be his. Where did he get so much money? That's another piece of the puzzle.
David worked as an insurance salesman, making maybe $30,000 a year. But in the last 2 years of his life, he had access to much larger sums. Offshore accounts, international transfers. Someone was funding him. A chill ran down Marina's spine. You think they killed Elena? I think Elena discovered something about this group, something that threatened them, and that she tried to protect you, just as she tried to protect her parents' memory. Hutchinson leaned forward. Marina, I need to ask you something. Are you sure there's nothing in your own life that might be connected to this? Anything strange that's happened in the last few years? Marina was about to say no, when a memory hit her like a lightning bolt. 3 years ago, she'd started receiving strange letters. Letters with no return address, with only one line written in an unfamiliar script. Your sister is waiting for you. She'd thought it was some kind of cruel prank, someone trying to capitalize on her grief. But now, the letters, she whispered. Someone's been sending me letters. Hutchinson straightened. What kind of letters? Marina rummaged in her bag until she found the most recent one, which had arrived just a week before. They're all the same, always the same sentence. Hutchinson took the letter and examined the paper, the envelope, the handwriting. This paper is expensive, handmade. And look at the postmark. They all came from the same town, Crater Lake. Crater Lake. Marina knew the place. It was a small, isolated community in the mountains, known mainly for the volcanic lake that gave it its name. Is it far from here? About a 2-hour drive. But Marina, if you're thinking about going there, I have to go. Marina stood, determination replacing fear. If there's a chance, however remote, that Elena is alive, or that I can find out what really happened to her, I have to try. Hutchinson sighed. Then I'll go with you. But let's do this right, with backup. The road to Crater Lake wound through dense forests and rugged mountains. Marina drove while Hutchinson spoke on the radio with other officers, coordinating a rendezvous point. But the farther they got from civilization, the more Marina felt they were being watched. Cars that seemed to be following them, but disappeared when she tried to be sure. Did you see that black sedan?
She asked Hutchinson. What black sedan? He glanced in the rearview mirror, frowning. I don't see any car behind us. Marina looked again. The road was empty, but she was sure there had been a car following them, the same car she'd noticed outside the motel the night before. They arrived in Crater Lake in the late afternoon. The town was smaller than Marina expected, just a main street with a few shops and a gas station. But there was something about the atmosphere of the place that made her uneasy. People on the streets looked at them with suspicion, and several shops seemed to be permanently closed. Let's start at the library, Hutchinson suggested. In small towns like this, the librarian usually knows everything that goes on. The library was a converted Victorian building, with high shelves and the smell of old books. The librarian was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes. She greeted them with a smile, but Marina noticed her eyes narrow when Hutchinson showed his badge. We're investigating the disappearance of a woman, he said, Elena Vasquez. She may have been here about 25 years ago. The librarian's expression shifted subtly. I don't recall anyone by that name. Maybe she was using another name, Marina interjected. She was small, dark hair, brown eyes, very pretty. I'm sorry, but I can't help you, the librarian said, averting her gaze. If you'll excuse me, I need to close up. They exited the building, but Marina couldn't shake the feeling that the librarian was lying. There was something in her reaction, a tension that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. She was scared, Marina said to Hutchinson as they walked back to the car. I noticed that too, but scared of what? Their answer came in the form of a man who approached them on the street. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and startlingly blue eyes. He was simply dressed, but there was something about his bearing that radiated authority. You're the investigators? He asked, extending a hand. I'm Pastor William. I lead the community here. Marina felt a chill as she touched his hand. It was cold, and he held on too long. I hear you're looking for someone, he continued. Perhaps I can help. Why don't you join me for dinner? My wife is a wonderful cook. Hutchinson hesitated. That's very kind, but... I insist, Pastor William said, and there was something in his voice that brooked no refusal.
There are things about this community you need to understand, things that can only be properly explained." Marina looked at Hutchinson, who nodded reluctantly. They followed Pastor William to a large house at the end of the street, an imposing Victorian with manicured gardens. But Marina noticed that all the windows were barred and discreet security cameras were positioned around the property. Pastor William's wife was a small, quiet woman who served them in silence, using fine china. The food was delicious, but Marina could barely eat. There was something about the atmosphere of the house that made her feel claustrophobic. "So," Pastor William said, methodically cutting his meat, "tell me about this person you're looking for." Marina began to talk about Elena, but she noticed that Pastor William didn't seem surprised by anything she said. It was as if he already knew the story. "There are many lost souls in this world," he said when she finished. "People searching for something bigger than themselves. Sometimes they find what they're looking for. Other times," he shrugged. "Other times what?" Hutchinson asked. "Other times they discover they weren't prepared for the truth." At that moment, Marina realized there was something familiar about Pastor William's eyes, something she had seen before but couldn't place. And then, like a bolt of lightning, the memory came. It wasn't Pastor William she recognized. It was his wife. The small, quiet woman who had served dinner had Elena's same dark brown eyes, the same dark hair, now streaked with gray, the same delicate hands. "My God," Marina whispered, rising from the table. "Elena?" The woman dropped the plate she was holding. The crash of porcelain echoed through the room like a gunshot. Pastor William rose slowly, his expression shifting from cordial to dangerous. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice low and menacing. Marina looked at the woman, who was now pressed against the wall, her eyes brimming with tears. "Elena, it's me, your sister." "I don't have a sister," the woman whispered, her voice cracking. "I have no one but my true family." Hutchinson put his hand on his gun. "Everyone stay calm. Let's talk about this." Pastor William smiled, but there was no humor in the smile. "Detective, you don't understand. Elena came to us willingly. She chose to stay. She chose to forget her past life." "She didn't choose anything," Marina shouted. "You brainwashed her. You kidnapped her." "We saved her," Pastor William replied. "She was lost, confused, involved with drugs and prostitution. We brought her home." Marina felt rage burning in her veins. "That's a lie. Elena never." "Marina," Elena's voice, weak but recognizable, cut her off. "Marina, I remember you." Pastor William turned to Elena, his expression furious. "Sarah, you're confused. You know your past life was just an illusion. We've talked about this." "My name is Elena," she said, her voice growing stronger. "And you made me forget. You made me forget everything." Hutchinson drew his weapon. "Nobody move. Pastor William, you're under arrest for kidnapping." But Pastor William only laughed. "Detective, you don't understand where you are. This is a closed community. We have our own ways of dealing with intruders." As if on cue, the kitchen door opened and 3 men entered. All were armed. "Now," Pastor William continued, "you have a choice. You can leave here and forget you ever saw anything, or you can join our family permanently." Marina looked at Elena, who was trembling against the wall. 25 years. Her sister had lived 25 years as a prisoner, her mind manipulated, her identity erased. Guilt and rage mixed in Marina's chest like poison. "I'm not leaving my sister here," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. "Then you've made your choice," Pastor William said, gesturing to the armed men. What followed was a blur of motion and adrenaline. Hutchinson yelled for Marina to duck as he fired at one of the men. Elena screamed and threw herself to the floor. Marina ran towards her, but Pastor William intercepted her, grabbing her arm with brutal force. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed in her ear. "Now you too will have to learn to fit in with our family." Marina bit his hand and broke free, running towards Elena. Hutchinson was exchanging gunfire with the other men, using the dining room table for cover.